The news hit like a thunderclap not just in Britain, but across the entire globe. Princess Anne, Queen Elizabeth II's renowned, austere, and no-nonsense only daughter, had done something even King Charles had avoided. In a remarkable private meeting, she formally stripped Meghan Markle of her royal title, the Duchess of Sussex, with quiet power and unflinching determination, and acted decisively, sending shockwaves through the monarchy. Within hours, whispers turned into explosive headlines. Meghan loses her title. Princess Anne's private verdict leaks. The palace refused to comment, offering no denial, no clarification, only silence, which itself spoke volumes. Insiders confirmed that emotions exploded behind palace walls. For Meghan, this wasn't just a royal snub, it was a humiliating disgrace, a rejection from the heart of the monarchy delivered by the one woman whose integrity, discipline, and brutal honesty were never in question. Princess Anne, who had never sought the spotlight, now found herself thrust into the center of it, and for the royal family, especially Prince William and Princess Kate, still reeling from Harry and Meghan's Netflix series, explosive interviews, and endless media leaks, Anne's move felt like more than retribution. It felt like a long overdue reckoning, not petty revenge, but a decisive and necessary stance, a line drawn in the sand. Make no mistake, this was no impulsive move. Anne has spent decades defending the monarchy, often from the shadows, carrying out more royal engagements than any other family member, all without fanfare or controversy. As one former courtier put it bluntly, when Anne acts, it means the palace has had enough. So what brought her to this moment? Why now? What truly happened behind those closed doors that led to the first official stripping of a royal title since Diana lost her HRH in 1996? This isn't your average tabloid twist. This is the latest chapter in a larger, more consequential battle. A clash of values, where tradition is pitted against modernity, loyalty against independence, and substance against performance. Meghan and Harry may have left the royal fold, but they clung to the grandeur. According to royal insiders, Anne finally cut that last thread. Meghan predictably reacted with fury. Prince Harry was reportedly caught in the emotional crossfire, and King Charles found himself torn between the judgment of his resolute sister and the defiance of his youngest son. Yet through all the chaos, one truth remained. The firm had made its choice, and Anne's fingerprints were all over it. This is the untold story of how Princess Anne quietly delivered the monarchy's most powerful message yet. A message that reverberated louder than any public speech. A message that, whether Meghan accepts it or not, was crystal clear. From the moment Meghan Markle entered the royal sphere, tension simmered. It wasn't overt, nor explosive. It was slow-burning, discreet, and deeply rooted in palace tradition. And no one embodied that quiet resistance more than Princess Anne. Unlike some of her more emotionally expressive relatives, Anne does not gossip, grandstand, or chase headlines. She is, in every way, the embodiment of the old guard, a woman raised in Queen Elizabeth II's image, hardened by decades of duty, steeped in silence, and fiercely loyal to the crown. Anne's style is precise. She doesn't smile unless it's earned. She avoids public spectacle, and she does not seek drama. But when she disapproves of something or someone, it's unmistakable. Reports suggest her disdain for Meghan was apparent from the very start. At first, Meghan is said to and have interpreted Anne's aloofness as mere indifference. But those closer to the palace knew otherwise. They insist Anne's misgivings had nothing to do with Meghan's mixed ethnicity or former acting career. The concern was something deeper and far more dangerous. Anne reportedly described it as the performance. Meghan appeared to treat royal life like a red carpet. Her dramatic interviews, public walkabouts, hands-on bump cradling, and eagerness for media exposure stood in stark contrast to everything Anne revered: privacy, humility, and grit. One senior aide summed it up bluntly: Princess Anne believes you serve the crown, not yourself. And in her opinion, Meghan made everything about Meghan. Still, Anne never went public with her views. She didn't storm out of meetings or make inflammatory statements. She simply watched and waited as the chasm between the son and the rest of the royal family widened. From Meghan's claim of institutional racism in her Oprah interview to the Netflix series portraying the royals as cold and out of touch, Anne viewed each move as a direct assault on everything Queen Elizabeth II had built and stood for. And for Anne, who had weathered a kidnapping attempt, intense tabloid scrutiny, and countless thankless royal duties, Meghan's complaints about feeling unsupported felt petty, entitled, and disloyal. Over the years, Anne kept her thoughts private, but her body language told another story. You could see it, one insider said. Anne would visibly tense when Meghan entered a room. She avoided eye contact and spoke in clipped, formal tones. The contrast with her relationship with Kate Middleton was stark. Anne reportedly grew close to Catherine over the years, drawn to her quiet resilience, shared values, and dedication to service. Both women admired Queen Elizabeth's example: lead with dignity, not drama. As Meghan's media profile grew, Anne became increasingly protective of Kate. During one high-profile royal gathering, sources claim Anne deliberately stood beside Kate, leaving Meghan isolated near the back of the receiving line. It was a subtle but powerful gesture, one noticed by those who understand royal cues. This was never about personal dislike alone. It was about values, deep, fundamental ones. To Anne, Meghan represented everything she distrusted: self-promotion, oversharing, and perceived victimhood. Meanwhile, Catherine embodied duty, sacrifice, and tradition. And when the palace finally moved to act, when the title of Duchess of Sussex was formally and quietly withdrawn, it was Anne who delivered the verdict. With her signature calm and clarity, she made clear that the crown would no longer tolerate disrespect disguised as independence. The royal family may not always respond loudly, but when it does respond, it speaks volumes. And this time, Princess Anne spoke for them all. Princess Anne's decisive and silent intervention in the ongoing saga between the British monarchy and the Sussexes marks a watershed moment in royal history. Long known for her quiet, steadfast service, Anne had embodied the values of duty, discretion, and strength. But over time, as the controversies surrounding Harry and Meghan escalated, often playing out through podcasts, documentaries, and carefully curated media moments, and began to see the crown's image eroding under the pressure of public perception, commercialization, and internal division. To her, Meghan represented everything the monarchy feared: becoming glamorous yet fragile, self-serving under the guise of activism, and increasingly driven by fame over function. While King Charles hesitated, conflicted by paternal affection and royal obligation, and while William maintained a dignified distance, Anne quietly emerged as the institution's final line of defense. The Duchess of Sussex's latest media ventures, particularly veiled criticisms of unnamed female royals, coupled with reports of her leveraging her title for private commercial deals, became the final tipping point. In response, Anne took action not with dramatic flair or public rebuke, but through a private, strategically executed operation designed to draw a firm boundary. A confidential meeting was held, legal counsel consulted, and a message composed and delivered with clinical precision. Meghan's public right to use her Duchess of Sussex title was rescinded not by law, but by institutional decree. It was a symbolic severance, one designed to reassert the crown's authority and refuse any further compromise of its image. The impact inside and outside the palace was immediate. Supporters of Meghan, particularly in the United States and among progressive media circles, interpreted the move as a targeted act of royal retaliation, vindictive and possibly racially charged. Hashtags like #JusticeForMeghan and #RoyalRacismReturns trended across social media platforms, echoing familiar criticisms of the monarchy's failure to evolve. Yet in Britain, the tone was markedly different. Polls indicated widespread public support for the decision, with many echoing the sentiment that one cannot burn down the house and expect to keep the title deed. For the monarchy, which had long endured the Sussexes' critiques in strained silence, Anne's action was seen not as petty vengeance but as a long overdue correction, a reminder that there are limits to how far one can stretch royal privilege. Without consequence, Anne didn't seek applause or headlines. Instead, she carried on, as she always had, quietly attending engagements and letting the decision speak for itself. This, too, sent a message that the act wasn't about personal vendetta but about protecting an institution that she had served with unwavering dedication for decades. Behind Montecito's gates, Meghan reportedly reacted with disbelief and fury, stunned not just by the act but by who had delivered it. To be symbolically cast out by a figure as stoic and respected as Princess Anne carried more weight than any tabloid scandal. Meghan allegedly viewed the move as deeply personal, feeling isolated, betrayed, and unfairly targeted. Her distress was compounded by the realization that no senior royal had opposed the decision. Charles remained silent, William quietly approved, and Kate, often cast as Meghan's antagonist in media narratives, offered no intervention. Even Harry, caught between his wife and his royal heritage, could not stop the machinery that had been set in motion. When he attempted to seek clarification from his father, he was met with silence, likely a product of past mistrust and current caution. For Meghan, this wasn't just a symbolic loss of title, it was a loss of identity, influence, and hope of reconciliation. Her image as a modern duchess, blending activism with aristocracy, was deeply fractured. However, it wasn't about personalities or grievances. It was about duty. Her decision, endorsed in silence by the crown, signaled the beginning of a new phase for the monarchy, one less about appeasement and more about preserving values. The shockwaves extended beyond the Sussex household. In Parliament, whispers began to grow louder about revisiting Harry and Meghan's standing in the line of succession. While any legal changes would require considerable deliberation and constitutional process, the mood was shifting. The royal family, so often accused of being passive in the face of criticism, was showing a new resolve. And leading that charge was a woman who had never sought the limelight or indulged in public confrontation. Princess Anne, often overlooked in discussions of royal power, had reminded the world what true authority looked like. She didn't grant interviews, issue statements, or smile for cameras. She simply acted with restraint, clarity, and conviction. For the public, this restored a degree of confidence in the monarchy's capacity to defend itself with dignity. For the institution, it was a moment of long overdue self-respect, and for Meghan and Harry, it marked a turning point, one from which there may be no return. They had chosen a path of independence, but Anne made it clear, independence does not come with the perks of the system one rejects. The monarchy, under siege for years, had finally begun to push back, and it all started with the woman who had spent a lifetime serving it in silence. Now, as the dust settles, one truth is undeniable. The age of quiet consequences has begun, and Princess Anne stands firmly at its helm.